And we're back for another episode of Michigan Wolverines Live. It's our 95th. Today's June 21st, 2023, Wednesday, because if it's Wednesday, it's Michigan Wolverines Live, the voice of college football. My name's John D'Adamo. I'm going to be your host today, and I just want to do a quick reminder, as we always do, to please like, subscribe, and share with a friend. It's so easy. It's literally 3 steps. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the bell to get notified when things are happening. So just do that, and you'll be set up for success as we build towards a very exciting season here at the Voice of College Football. And without further ado, how about the man who makes this happen every single day on our channel and in the entire Voice of College Football network? We got Mark Rogers, Voice of College Football, in the house. Hey, Mark.
Hey, John. Well, I may be the guy that makes it happen overall, but when it comes to this show, folks, make no mistake about it. This is the guy over here that makes it happen because I've been running around, and that's not this week. This has been going on for quite some time. So we appreciate John taking hold of this show, organizing and launching this show and getting it started and ready to roll each and every week. And I typically fly in off the seat of my pants and get going and let John lead the way. But John, appreciate you being here. I guess one nice thing about having a flexible sort of work arrangement and also the summer months is that I've been able to take some of my business calls outside and, take a walk around the block a few times.
Hey, why not take a walk? And, having a dog, I have my dog Gizmo, that always helps with getting out to walk because you got to do it. So especially down here, it's pretty enjoyable to do that. As long as you avoid like noon, you're probably good. Well, the philosopher Jagger once said, "You can't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, you might find that you get what you need." And you know what Michigan needed? A 4-star wide receiver, an underrated running back, and even an edge rusher. And all 3 committed to Michigan over the last few days. We've already talked about Amarian Stewart and Capano on the show, but we haven't really talked as much about Devin Baxter. But puts Michigan up to 22 commits for 2024, and right up there, Georgia's number 1, Michigan's number 2, and then Florida is just out of nowhere. Florida, who went 6-7 last year, let me just emphasize, 6-7, is now 3rd in the entire country for recruiting, according to 247. So the whole landscape can change like that right away.
Florida certainly has the prime recruiting ground to get it done, but
that's true.
With all the other options down there, whether that be their rivals or their rivals in the SEC, you wonder what is the recruiting pitch for Billy Napier right now? What is the NIL pitch? What's going on there at Florida? And again, there are certain schools that we have seen. Texas is probably the prime example that have been able to recruit top 5 to 10 classes with inferior records on the field. Miami brought in the 7th or 8th class last year after a disastrous, after the 7-5 year that led to a coach's firing and then leading into another bad season. So
right.
The success on the field obviously is the proof of concept that a lot of student athletes want to see, but there are certainly big brands and big facilities and resources to draw them in, even if you've had a bit of a slide or slump recently.
Yeah, and if these classes continue, I mean, it's going to go one way or the other, right? It could go the Texas A&M route. As we know, Texas A&M picked up an incredible recruiting class like 1 or 2 cycles ago. Then they have the season that they just had, and then they pick up Bobby Petrino. So that's the one way it could go, or it could go the Georgia, Bama route of, okay, they're going to crush it. It could go either way, really. So I'm very curious to see how Florida does in the year or 2 ahead, Billy Napier. But we haven't talked as much about this player. And so I always try to load up a little film if we haven't talked about a player yet. And we've been doing this the last couple weeks now that we know it's not as laggy that like it was in the Jaden Davis episode for some reason. But this player, Devin Baxter, Mark, this is a player who is a 3-star edge rusher, but he is the number 17 player in the entire state of Maryland. He recorded 17 tackles, 2 sacks in 2022, and Michigan, to get him, actually had to beat out 21 schools, including the likes of Penn State, Tennessee, Maryland, Rutgers, and Virginia Tech. And you can see here he actually plays some tight end as well. So he can be used as a tight end as well. So he's got a lot of clearly athleticism, and I think it's going to add some much needed continual depth to the defense.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the offer sheet of 21, which includes the schools that you listed there, and there's a definite regional feel there. And that's kind of something that we see on a regular basis with these offer sheets at the 3-star range, where there's really good schools, strong schools, Power 5 schools, but they're within the region. That's kind of the outer region of a Tennessee going north, and the various directions by all those schools, but not a national interest. It doesn't appear based on that offer list. And I know you just went with the top 4 or 5 or the most intriguing offers outside of Michigan, but I'm going to trust Michigan's ability to scout, certainly. And but as we've talked about on here, that offer sheet, that offer list after the recruiting ranking, or maybe even in addition or surpassing the recruiting ranking at some point, always is a great indicator as to how good a player is being evaluated by everyone.
Yeah, for sure. And you're spot on about the regionality of it. And with these types of players, that tends to happen. There's exceptions, of course, to the rule. But it tends to be more of a regional approach, which is why when I saw Tennessee was in the mix, I was like, okay, that's interesting. When I was prepping for the show. So definitely a player to keep an eye out. Jesse Minner has clearly done a great job, not just recruiting the top talent, but recruiting 3-star talent, as did as Harbaugh does, as Mike McDonald did, and even Don Brown from a recruiting perspective, not a scheme or a play calling perspective, but a recruiting perspective. They have been doing a pretty good job of being able to bring in these players. So we'll see how it goes, but just some really good film there. And he's also a basketball player. So that may be something that he'd like to do as well. You never know. But he plays, you've noticed on this show now, the last couple of weeks, there's been a couple of people, they want to play baseball, they want to play basketball. And Harbaugh has in the past been, I think, pretty cool about, as long as you focus on your football during the times you need to. I think he supports athleticism in general,
I would love to see how that works, though, in practicality.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's as much of a thing as it once was, as football has
Right.
become, all the sports have become more taxing, more of a schedule, demand for these players, but especially football. That, if you're playing baseball, I guess I've heard of all sorts of situations where players are finishing up a baseball game and then they run to spring football practice or vice versa when they're on campus. But obviously there are road trips or there are conflicts with practices. So I would think that you would have to be really sold on a young man at the level that Michigan's expecting to
Sure.
play. That you
Yeah,
would really have to be sold on somebody that's going to,
it's true.
fracture their attention because there is time away from what you're expecting everyone else to do. Now, again, I don't know how much time that is, and it's obviously just during the season in which that sport is involved. And I would think when there's a conflict during the rest of the calendar year, that would sway football's way, because it's not like these other sports are just seasonal sports. The baseball players condition and have fall baseball seasons, for example. Well, he's not going to be playing fall baseball.
Right.
So
that's true. Yeah, I think football will probably get prominence, especially given the goals of the football team this year to win a national championship. Let's be honest. Beforehand it was a basketball school. Now it's a football school. At some one year, I just love to have like a Florida situation where you do amazing in both sports. But yeah, it tends to be kind of rare, especially for Michigan. So we've been hearing some reports from Victor's weekend, the recruiting weekend that happened this past weekend, and offensive tackle commit Blake Frazier made an interesting quote that he said, "I don't think there's a guy that went on that trip that won't end up at Michigan." And just to show the 4 left to commit, because of course Baxter just committed on Monday. The 4 left to commit from Victor's weekend are 4-star cornerback Aaron Scott, 4-star offensive tackle Michael Uni, 4-star wide receiver Jordan Shipp, who we've talked about repeatedly on the show because of his Providence Day Jaden Davis connections, and 4-star linebacker Jeremiah Beasley. And from everything I've seen, Scott is the one that out of all 4 of them may make that statement not quite true. So we'll see if Scott can commit to Michigan, but it sounds like Victor's weekend went pretty well based on that quote.
Yeah, that would be out of how many total? Do we know?
I'd have to. I'm sure Jason will tell us. He knows all that better than I do. But yeah, it was the rest of them were either commits or commits. So. Yeah, Jason will chime in, I'm sure. But it looks like, interestingly, Aaron Scott on 247 is still, with 3 predictions, crystal balled towards Ohio State with 100%. Now, the certainty is at 6 out of 10. So that he would be the key wild card out of those 4. Let's see. I bet he's answered. Let's see. Yeah. But I'm thinking it was like 9 or 10, somewhere in there. And half of them were committed. But this kind of talk, so in chat right now, we have a spirited debate going on, USC versus Michigan. Love to see it. And we have talks like that all the time on our Discord. So if you go to patreon.com/MarkRogersTV, join our Discord chat, you can talk Wolverines all the time. We also do other hangouts. We do watch parties, film sessions. During the season, Mark puts out a betting guide with a bunch of different members of the media. And consider that, or consider a YouTube membership, which starts at just $2.99. Either way, it supports the channel. It supports the network. It supports what Voice of College Football is trying to do. And I think it would be really appreciated. At least just pick one of the 2. And Aura. So thanks to Aura. Get your free 2-week trial, protect yourself, and we will, I'm sure, have our special video in a second here.
Of us are on the internet pretty much all the time. It's fun. You get to socialize, you get entertained, and in this day and age, it's pretty much necessary. And even if you're one of those people that's not on the internet all the time, you know what is? Your personal information. And there are people out there trying to hack you all the time. They want your email address, they want your phone number, they want your place of employment, and they want to do bad things with it. There's also fairly legitimate corporations and companies that want your information. They want it for marketing purposes. They're going to buy it. They're going to sell it. They're going to trade it. At the very least, it's annoying to you. It's a nuisance. It's aggravating. Your email gets cluttered up with spam email. You get robocalls all the time. That's at the very least. At the worst, it's a threat to your family, to your friends, to your personal information, to your banking, to your finances, to your security, to your safety, to your identity. It can be pretty serious. This video is sponsored by Aura. I got hacked and it was pretty obvious. This was about 8 or 9 months ago, and there were red flags all over the place. And I didn't exactly know what to do, but I knew I needed to do something quickly. I mean quickly. I researched 8, 10, or 12 companies immediately. I went all over the place. I asked people. I was online looking for the best company that could serve my needs and secure my information. You know who I found? Aura. And I'm glad I did. It was amazing. I contacted them. They got right back to me immediately. Their customer support is phenomenal. Their customer service is first-rate, friendly. They are detailed. They know what they're doing, and they do it right, and they will protect you. In addition to everything I just mentioned, they've got a password-keeping service. They keep your credit score. They notify you anytime there's a possible data breach. This has happened to me a number of times. I'm getting notifications all the time when there's a possible compromise to my credit score or anything that I don't want. They've got a VPN that will allow you to browse the internet anonymously. It's amazing. And again, customer service support available 24/7. Click the link in the description section below and get 2 free weeks of Aura. Protect your finances, protect your information, protect your privacy, protect your identity. I did, and I'm glad I did. Aura, thank you so much for what you've done for me, and now for my Voice of College Football community.
All right, all right.
Thank you, Aura. And again, that's a 2-week free trial. Protect your identity, protect your finances, and protect yourself.
Absolutely. Thanks for sponsoring. All righty. So what we've heard is that 4-star Ohio cornerbacks, 2 of them, Bryce West and Aaron Scott, would like to visit Michigan one more time. I believe they have official visits to Ohio State this weekend, but they'd like to do an unofficial visit to Michigan again. And a quote that was really interesting from Aaron Scott was, "They're a family right now. They're all super close and all take every day and made me feel more comfortable on the visit." So it seems like whatever they're doing on these recruiting visits, clearly they feel some sense of community, of togetherness, and that they could maybe make an impact on the Michigan football team. Have you? I'm sure you've looked maybe a little bit at West and Scott, given the fact that they're Ohio-based. But I know that they've been kind of visiting around and doing the rounds that most of the 4 stars, 5 stars do. So,
yeah, can't give you a whole lot on these guys. I'm not a recruiting guy, but
yeah,
in terms of the Ohio State lean, I'm trying to go back to what we talk about on our Ohio State shows, because we've talked about these guys, especially Bryce West, a number of times. And
yep.
I don't want to say anything out of line because I'm not recalling exactly. I want to say that especially our guy, Kevin Noon, that we lean on a little bit more for recruiting, believes that West is a go for Ohio State. But again, I shouldn't even say that because I don't recall our conversations from when I've brought those guys up. But I see that Scott is listed 247 Sports. The 2 crystal ball predictions are Ohio State.
Yep. So at least Michigan's making it interesting. And, they're not treating it as a foregone conclusion that they're going to Ohio State until they sign on the dotted line and they officially commit. So,
yeah, there's really no way of knowing when a student athlete decides to continue to take visits, because on one hand, there's always that chance that leaves open the opportunity, that leaves open the sales pitch No question about that. That's a given. But some take it more so from the stance that just like the commitment itself, once it's signed, then it's signed. But all these commitments leading up to it, we can only conjecture on how firm the commitments are. I got to believe that many see that as what many of us would in our approach to putting something called a commitment on something, that's exactly what it is. It's a commitment. Well, for others, it's like, well, this is my strong preference right now, so I've committed, but that's not a commitment. So who knows?
Yeah. And look at Dylan Raiola. He just changed high schools again. This is his second school that he's committed to. So it's changeable, and so you don't really know until it's done. You see them on the field, really, and even then, then you have the transfer portal. So we're always going to be trying to stay on top of it, but you never quite feel like you have a full handle on it because of how fluid everything is.
Yes, the recruiting game is not why I'm doing what I'm doing. I got to tell you that. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm looking very forward to breaking down some game film for sure. We're getting closer. What is it? 66 days?
That's 66 is what I counted today, because we've got a 66-day countdown coming up tonight at 8:00 Eastern over on the main channel.
8:00, not 8:30. Okay, just check.
Yes, well, I will have a story for everyone as to why it changed from 8:30 to 8:00, and why I will be able to make the 8:00 and not the 8:30 because of a particular commitment that caused me to get out of bed early this morning that I was not anticipating.
Well, fair enough. I just edited it for later, so we have the right info. Alrighty, so if you haven't checked out the Voice of College Football merch store lately, there is a collection of amazing products that I strongly recommend you take a look at. Not only do we have for the main Voice of College Football a bunch of stuff like aprons for your grilling, light a candle for your school that needs to light a candle for them, pint glasses, but also it's swimming season, and so you've got yourself some swimming trunks here. All kinds of things for all seasons, and Michigan specific items. So I'm eyeing up the pint glass here. I think that you can toast to who's got it better than us? Nobody, with a Michigan pint glass.
That's some good looking stuff right there. I got to say that, Joey. Thank you. Nice job putting that together.
Yeah, and Joey's been hanging out in here today, and yeah, we appreciate everything that you do for the whole network for sure. So I put the link to go check it out. All you have to do is click it and check out some of the merch for both the main channel, the top 25 that actually makes sense, and then I think we're up to like 7 or 8 team channels, including Michigan. So check that out. So now we get to the topic that everybody's talking about and has been talking about in chat the last 20 minutes. So we have heard that Taylor Tatum is reportedly down to 2 schools in his choice. So Michigan seems to be off the table at this point. He is not going to be taking his Michigan official visit. That was EJ Holland reported that from On3, I believe is his thing. So he reported that, and I just been hearing about that he's kind of down to USC and Oklahoma. And with him in particular, Oklahoma makes. I was thinking about this, like Oklahoma, but then it makes sense when you think about it, because at Oklahoma now, USC, you can make the argument they have some really good running backs. I'm going to do an official numbers breakdown at some point of USC running back room versus Michigan running back room, just to put that argument to rest and really look at the data there. But Oklahoma, this guy could start. I'm pretty sure he isn't going to have to go up against Ben Hall, Cole Cabana. In 2024, you've got the Ohio running back just Jordan Marshall that committed earlier. Now you have this running back that I think is underrated, Micah Capana. So yeah, this may be a choice of let's get a lot of playing time to go to the NFL one day. I don't know. USC makes a lot of sense from an offense perspective because of how Lincoln Riley runs his offense. So that one makes a lot of sense. Oklahoma, though, what do you think about that? Like going down to those two, they seem very different.
Yeah, they do seem different. And obviously, there's a connection there that involves Lincoln Riley that has nothing to do with this situation. But I will say about Oklahoma that trying to come up with the name of the Tennessee running back, their leading rusher last year was he transferred from Tennessee. Can't come up with his name. Eric Gray. Eric Gray was their leading rusher last year. So I believe he's moving on. So in the 2022 class, Oklahoma, their top two signees in that class were both 4 close to 5-star running backs in Gavin Sawchuk and Javante Barnes. Yeah, 2 very different running backs. One was an early enrollee, and I believe that was Barnes was the early enrollee. Sawchuk was not. Sawchuk sat most of the season. Barnes was a pretty major factor in the offense, but then Sawchuk did get into the bowl game for some meaningful carries against Florida State. Bottom line is they've got a pretty deep running back room, and I would guess, like if we went to Athlon's, and I'm not serving up Athlon's, I guess I don't have it right here. Not serving up Athlon's is the Bible or by any stretch of the imagination. But I would think that they would have Oklahoma's running backs as a top 5 to 10 room in the country. So
Okay.
they are fairly well stacked there from that standpoint.
Okay. Jason brought up a possibility too. Apparently, they have a really great baseball program. I don't follow baseball as much, but apparently they have a great baseball program. We know that Tatum wants to play baseball, so that could be a factor too.
He's talking about USC, or he's talking about Oklahoma in baseball.
Oh, well, he says Oklahoma.
Okay.
Yeah. So maybe that's a factor. Tim brings up a unique perspective, which is why I'm highlighting it here. It's an interesting way of looking at it. Why would a guy want to compete with U of M's 3 stars when he is the number 1 running back in the country? Well, we know that U of M actually has 4 stars and 3 stars. And right now, Donovan Edwards is a 5-star as well. Blake Corum, I would argue, I think he was like 98 scored when he was recruited. He was just on the cutoff there, and so they're both gone, obviously. But I don't see any downward slide for the running back core at all, really.
Yeah, and to me, the recruiting rankings and the star ranking holds a ton of weight when we're discussing them as high school football players. But once they've played in college and either proven or disproven their recruiting ranking, then who cares what they are? Who cares what Blake Corum was ranked at the time that he was ranked? It doesn't matter now. He's a top 2 or 3 running back in college football. If I'm understanding what we're taking on here.
Well, especially now that Bijan is off to the NFL. Really, most of the others in his same grouping of elite running back talent are in the NFL now. So he has the potential, as does Donovan Edwards, to break out into potentially a Heisman finalist season going to New York City. I don't know who is going to be beating Caleb Williams. I know that it's extremely rare historically to have a back-to-back Heisman, but like the only other one I can think of is Marvin Harrison Jr. at Ohio State as somebody who could actually beat him. Now, again, we have the whole season to play, and we're going to be talking about it week by week as we get closer and closer to New York. But yeah, I think the one of the Michigan running backs could make it. It's possible.
Oh, absolutely. It's possible. So your statement is basically that Blake Corum is a top 2 or 3 candidate for the Heisman Trophy.
I think he's a top four, at least 4 or 5. And Donovan Edwards, depending on his season, could get in there too. It depends on how Mike Hart and Jim Harbaugh utilize them in their running back sets, right? And in the offense. Because if all indications point to Harbaugh advising Blake Corum to go to the NFL. I think he's going to be worried about re-injuring because obviously Blake Corum had that injury against Illinois, and he was going to probably not get the snaps that he got, only to like make sure that he's preserved for the NFL. And my guess is he'll be saved for games like Ohio State, Penn State, if need be, Michigan State, if things get hairy, the Big Ten championship, and hopefully, if all goes the way that Michigan wants, playoff appearance. So if he's preserved for those games, then Donovan Edwards and Ben Hall, and even CJ Stokes to an extent, will be carrying some of that load as well. So it really is a complete unknown right now what Sharon Moore and Harbaugh and Mike Hart are going to do.
I was on Michigan podcast last week, and Steve Dace had 5 predictions that he served up about Michigan football and wanted to get my take on them. That was one of them in regards to the Heisman candidacy of Michigan players. And I pushed back on certain points that he made concerning other areas of the team, but concerning the Heisman race within the team, he believes that J.J. McCarthy has a better shot at winning the Heisman than either 2 of the running backs. And I completely understand his reasoning. His reasoning is, number one, a lot of what you just stated. They've got big goals, team goals. Their offense should be a little bit more diverse than it's been in recent years. Not that they're going to become a pass-happy team, but they did throw it the 114th most times, or 18th or 19th the least times of any team in the country. Most likely they're going to throw the ball more this season. Most likely the offense is going to rely on J.J. McCarthy more.
Yep.
Most likely Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards hopefully will be healthy for more time at the same time, and therefore they can share the load. I'm looking at Blake Corum's number of carries last year, and they really did save him in the 3 non-conference games. He carried it 13, 9, and 12 times against Colorado State, Hawaii, and UConn last year. Then Maryland, boom. Challenging game, not down to the wire, but a 4-quarter game. 30 carries. Yeah. 30 carries, 29, 25, 28, 33, 20, 28. Then the Illinois game where he got hurt late second quarter. And he already had 18 carries, and I think he only came into the game for 1 or 2 carries after that. So he was on a pace to have like 35 carries in that game.
I was at that game. He tried to come back, but no. And obviously he tried to come back in the Ohio State game too. And I think did like 6 yards or something like that. But yeah, he was out. So I think what they'll probably do is, even in some of the conference games that aren't the big ones, they'll probably lean more on Donovan and Blake and Ben Hall. But again, we'll see. And JJ McCarthy, listen, if Michigan does what Michigan the goal is, if Michigan wins the national championship, and I'm saying that is a big if. Georgia fans on chat, I'm sure, going to be in an uproar if I don't say it's a big if. But if that happens, JJ McCarthy would then be in a position, I think, depending on his productivity. Because Stetson Bennett was second in the voting, and he basically got the double national championship bump. Because let's be real, like out of all the Georgia players, I think he did a great job managing the games. I think he even did a decent job quarterbacking, but second to Caleb, who is, I think everybody agrees, maybe one of the top quarterbacks I've ever seen in college football, at least any of the games that I've ever watched. So it's just, yeah, it's interesting how it all goes. But, we'll see how the season plays out on that front.
Yeah, to me, the voters got it right. And Caleb Williams was far and away, I hate to say the best player in the country because, of course, we're discounting certain positions. He was the best quarterback, running back, wide receiver in the country. We'll put it that way. And so, yeah, and I don't remember how much he won by, but I got to think it was a wide margin.
Pretty wide.
In retrospect,
I
I didn't have an issue with Stetson Bennett being. I did kind of question when he was selected to go to New York, and then once I looked at it, I didn't have a huge issue with it. C.J. Stroud is a better quarterback than Stetson Bennett, but I don't know if he's a better college player, college quarterback. And the other thing we have to consider, as you were mentioning, JJ's candidacy this year and Stetson Bennett last year is, there's not the playoff to factor
That's
into
true.
it. It's just the regular season and the Big Ten championship game. So,
yeah. Yep, that's right. And so for the Stroud argument, the Georgia game wasn't a factor, right? So that if the Georgia game had been played and then they vote, then it could have been a whole different thing in terms of the rankings, because that was probably his best game of his career. So the other piece of can't win them all that I actually watched the Boo Carter Instagram live when he committed to Tennessee. And so he did it via IG Live. And interestingly, Joe Milton was in the IG Live as well and told all the Michigan fans, chill on the Go Blue stuff. So he seems to still be a little salty about even though he almost caused Michigan to lose to a team called Rutgers in 2020. So I don't know if he has the right to be salty, because if it wasn't for Cade, Michigan was going to have one win that season and lose to Rutgers. So I don't know what that was about, but I could see why Boo Carter would go to Tennessee. We know that Tennessee and the style of offense that Heupel runs, it can make you a real impact player. And you see some of his players already going to the NFL and obviously we'll see how they do in the NFL in some cases. Hendon Hooker, for one, how they do there. But I can understand why somebody would pick Tennessee if you're a Boo Carter type.
Well, just looking over his page, the two things that shout out Tennessee to me are, number one, he's from Tennessee.
From Tennessee,
He's from Tennessee.
Yep.
So that means a whole lot to some people. To others, it means less. So that may have factored in considerably. I would think it did. The other is the position designation of athlete. To your point, in the Josh Heupel offense, that sounds more like he lines up in the slot. He could be a quasi receiver. He's that type of, Curtis Samuel comes to mind, that type of player, possibly at 5'10", 184, and he sees more opportunity to be a fit and be a weapon in the Tennessee offense.
Yeah, and something I heard, and we'll see obviously how, I don't have a bunch of sources backing this up, but I listened to a Twitter Spaces right after the announcement, and there's some discussion about Michigan had offered Boo Carter the opportunity to play offense and defense, whereas Tennessee hadn't done that yet. Apparently, Tennessee decided to match the offer basically on that front. Sure, play offense, play defense. Let's have fun. So maybe that was the final piece that he needed to commit closer to home, because those are quite different schools, going up to Ann Arbor versus hanging out in Tennessee, where you're kind of close to the fam and friends and everything else. But like we said, you win some and you lose some. You don't win some. So there it is. When you're doing your shopping on Amazon, as many of us do from time to time, and you're getting your popcorn makers, you're getting your pull floaties, whatever the case may be, just bookmark Mark's Amazon link. Takes 2 seconds, and it's the same shopping experience. So why not do it? If you haven't done it yet, bookmark it now. Go to the description, and I'll grab the link and just bookmark it.
Yeah, John, it's the one thing that every time I present the Amazon link, and it probably goes through your mind as well, I just think this is the one thing we ask of the audience. This is even, in a sense, easier to do than hit the like button because we're not asking you to shop on Amazon. If you don't shop on Amazon, don't shop on Amazon. But if you already shop on Amazon, and plenty of you do, then we would just ask that you would use the link. And that is going to take a little effort or thought, at least the first time you do it. The second time you do it, the third, then it's going to become habit. That's going to be the link that you use. And again, it's going to operate exactly the same as it does right now when you do your shopping.
So check that out. If you haven't clicked it yet, it's literally in the chat. All you have to do, click that, hit the bookmark, and then when you're ready, if you choose to shop on Amazon, because some people don't, right? But if you do choose to do that, you might as well send Mark a couple of bucks once you check out. So one thing that we've looked at, everybody, all the media, they put out their predictions about who they think is going to beat who. And what I'm hearing from Tom Fornelli at CBS Sports, but he is not the only one. He has Penn State beating Michigan in 2023. And my question, and I probably should also reserve this for a Penn State show in the future. We've talked about this on the Big Ten show a couple of times as well. But my curiosity here is, I understand that this game is at Happy Valley. I get it, and there you have an innate home field advantage, but Happy Valley's advantage is not the same as Kinnick Stadium's advantage. There are different levels of home field advantage, and the stats really don't show that Michigan does exponentially worse at Happy Valley versus not. I'm pretty sure it's about even versus Kinnick, where forget about it. So with that said, I guess Mark, you've commented about Drew Aller and his arm in some of your videos ranking the quarterbacks. But I just haven't seen enough yet of him to really evaluate yet what he's going to be like. The little bit that I saw close to the end of the season was he got thrown in. Clifford was struggling. He got thrown in. I forget the exact game it was, but he got thrown in there. I didn't really see anything that wowed me. Of course, the situation was unique, right? But I didn't see anything that wowed me about him. And I guess the running backs wow me more. But it's really going to come down, as Argraw has said on Big Ten show, the O-line. And can the O-line help protect Drew and protect those two running backs, Singleton and Allen? So I guess my question is just, are people just thinking that due to potential, Penn State is going to be in that 11-12 win echelon?
That is a great question. That is a great question. So Ohio State owned the league. Michigan's taken that away from them. Penn State has sat there at 2 or 3 the entire time. But basically, I know they won a Big Ten championship in 2016. But overall, they've sat there. And have they been ahead of Michigan at times? Yes, but they've never been number one. Right. It's been Ohio State, and now it's Michigan. So I think that, number one, a lot of people don't give Sean Clifford a whole lot of credit. And I'm not here to defend Sean Clifford or espouse his characteristics as a top flight elite quarterback. I don't think he was any of those things. I think he was really good. I think he was a top 25 quarterback in college football. But now Drew Aller is a higher rated quarterback with greater arm talent than Sean Clifford. So people are excited about that. Penn State fans are excited about the possibilities. They do have this 1-2 punch in the backfield with Singleton and Katron Allen.
Yeah.
And they were just freshmen last year, so they should improve considerably. the offensive line is supposed to be the best offensive line that we've seen in a decade at Penn State since Joe Paterno was there.
Wow. Okay.
That's what people tell me, and that's what I've seen in reading various forecasts on Penn State, that that's really been their worst position since the scholarship reductions and that whole mess and trying to build back from that. The offensive line has been the one sore spot for Penn State, and they believe that they've got their best offensive line since whenever, 10 or 15 years ago. The defense, I'm not going to claim that this was the best defense in the Big Ten last year, but I think it was the most athletic, and I think at its best, it was the best defense. They
Okay.
didn't always play like it. Michigan was better at times. Iowa was better much
Yeah.
of the time.
Yeah.
Illinois as well. But and just a high-end, athletic, highly recruited defense. Now, they did take some hits. There is got to be a level of frustration from coaches when, man, you've got these, a great unit like that, and then you've got more coming, but then you constantly lose guys. So, Porter and Jair Brown, some of those guys are gone. But I do expect them to have arguably the best defense in the Big Ten. We've talked about this concerning the comparison between Michigan and Ohio State. And the same holds true to a certain extent about Penn State, except for they haven't been Ohio State
Right.
the last 5 to 10 years under James Franklin, is that Michigan's the logical pick in this. They just have less question marks than anybody, and it's not even that close. Penn State has a talent argument, but they don't have that's an argument. That's not like that they have a clear talent advantage over Michigan, because they don't.
Yeah.
It's
And they have to
arguable.
find some way to stop Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum from getting 417 rushing yards again.
Yeah, they're going to have to.
So they got to find some way to figure that out.
Yeah. Yeah, that was just a beat down.
But, again, it could be a situation where, Clifford had some interesting plays. I thought that one 60-some yard run was pretty impressive that he did. Franklin has had a tendency to have a couple of those just like out of nowhere, like really good plays. And it made it so that the score didn't reflect the fact that Michigan was dominating in the stat line. But that first half was like, wait, Penn State is leading? But this looks very lopsided, but it was basically 2 or 3 like lights out plays. So they're going to have to do that again, but they're going to have to do it the whole game. And they're going to have to do something to prevent Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum from getting as many. They're not going to stop them completely, but could they have the amount of rushing yards and then, maybe get some more rhythm on offense? It's possible. And that's probably the recipe.
I cannot speak for this particular writer, but I will say this as well. I try to do the same thing. I try to be a visionary. I try to figure out who's going to break through before they break through and not be reactive. Because otherwise, you always pencil in Ohio State and now Michigan, Georgia, Alabama, and then it was Oklahoma, and throw somebody else in there now, LSU or USC or somebody, and that's your playoff. Yeah. We've all seen the same few teams, or maybe a Clemson in the past. So I think a lot of people in making predictions want to kind of foresee something before it happens, and Penn State's one of those teams that is getting a lot of love as I want to be the person that predicted it before it happened.
And Drew, did you watch Penn State in the Rose Bowl? I did. I also watched how depleted Utah was in that game, and they lost their quarterback. So that kind of caused Penn. I mean, listen, Penn State won on the scoreboard, and that's what matters. But you also have to look at games with a little bit of higher level thinking. And so I can't fully evaluate that Rose Bowl as Penn State's going to crush it this year. just because of what I know about Utah's situation in that game. So, yeah. So the final thing I just want to cover. So we did lose a former Michigan player. Mr. Simpson passed away today. Former running back. Wasn't a huge impact player. He did redshirt his freshman year, and he recorded 2 solo tackles. So he did a little bit on the defensive side as well. But we just want to give best thoughts and prayers to the family, friends of Mr. Simpson. Always a Wolverine. So thanks for that.
Absolutely.
And we've got some things coming up. So I believe this is still a thing, right, Mark? Disputed National Championship Marathon Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, where we'll Mark and guests who are way more knowledgeable in history than I am will be covering this and talking about, I think, year by year, going back until beginning of the AP poll era.
The beginning of time for many of us. So whatever that is. Yes. The AP poll era for sure. 1936.
Okay.
And I'm not going to guarantee that we're going to get this all accomplished on Thursday night because I am not up for a 10-hour marathon, but I don't think I will be. We'll see. If I get rolling, maybe I will be. But we're going to have it all formatted in such a way that we will organize the discussion and allow all of you to comment and weigh in. But we're going to go season by season. And even those seasons you don't believe should be disputed, we're still going to review those seasons. It's obviously going to be a quicker review and discussion, but we are going to move through the entirety of college football history.
Should be fun. I'll do my best to listen to as much as I can. I think that's usually when I take classes at the gym, but we'll definitely tune in after that, and I'm sure it'll be good. Anything with history with you, Mark, I just listen in and I just enjoy it because it's like an encyclopedia of historical football knowledge. So coming up next, Florida State at 6 p.m. I've put the link. So all you guys have to do is click that link and just go right over there, hit the like button. If you can't make it for a lot of the show, at least hit the like button. It'll help out. Florida State live at 6, Miami at 7 p.m. Eastern, and our live call-in show at 8 p.m. Eastern. So our must-see TV block coming up. So I'll be watching that show in 5 minutes or so. I'll let you go do that.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, Mark, and thanks everybody for tuning in. Troy is challenging all the Michigan fans, so giving the Buckeye perspective as he does all the time. Please hit the like button, and 79 watching, 21 likes. Yeah, let's do better than that. And since Troy said that, let me just point out one thing. Hit the subscribe button because Michigan is down by about 1,000 subscribers right now versus the Ohio State Buckeye channel. We don't want that, okay? We want the Michigan channel to get right up there, just like Michigan did in 2021 and 2022, overtake Ohio State. And the only way to do that is to hit the like and the sub and hit the alerts and tell your friends to do the same so we can blow this channel up. So I'll see you next on Florida State in a couple of minutes. And until next time, go blue.